Hi there, Emily Midgett here with you today on the Pinkfresh Studio YouTube channel, and today I have a card that is created using two of my designs for Pinkfresh, the It's a New Day stamp set and the Floral Focus Background stamp set. I designed these stamp sets so that they would kind of coordinate, and I've never actually had a chance to use them. So I have, you can see that the flowers kind of match here from the Floral Focus and from the It's a New Day stamp set. So I've heat embossed the Floral Focus on a panel of vellum using white embossing powder, and we're going to use some watercoloring and some stenciling today to create this very, very soft kind of wedding card. I've got 3 Caran markers, Caran Brush Marker Pro markers that we're going to use to do some watercoloring. So I have just a plain panel of white A2 cardstock, and I am going to use the little etched tick marks on the corners of each stencil to line up where my stenciling is going to be, which coordinates perfectly with the heat embossed background stamp on the vellum panel that I've already done off camera. So I'm just using, I've got Peach Fuzz, Coral Reef, Meadow, and Emerald City inks, and I am just going to use those to blend not very fancy, nothing extra special about this blending, but I'm going to use these coordinating stencils for the Floral Focus stamp set, and I'm going to do some kind of peachy coral butterfly ranunculus flowers. And what's beautiful about vellum, I use vellum in everything. I use so much vellum, I should probably buy some stock in it because vellum, it's great for creating kind of an ethereal, floating sentiment when you don't want to really add anything heavy to your card front. If you've got a very light card front and you don't want to add a heavy sentiment, heat embossing it on vellum is great. Vellum is great for softening a background. If you have a really busy background and you want to kind of soften that, but you still want the pattern to be visible, vellum, a sheet of vellum over the top of it covers that up and makes it beautifully soft and kind of ethereal almost, which is the technique that I'm going to use it for today. So I'm not doing anything particularly exciting with the stenciling. I'm basically just adding the color that I want to this image. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to cover it up, as you can see here, I'm going to cover it up with that heat embossed vellum panel. So it's going to become kind of a softened background. So all we want is just the hint of that color. We don't want it to be overpowering or to take over the feel of the card, because we're also going to have that coordinating watercolored heat embossed butterfly ranunculus flower from the It's a New Day stamp set. So I'm just adding, these are the foliage, and we're just going to make some bright green foliage and add the details on there. You can see how bright and vibrant that foliage is after you blend it with that meadow ink. But then when we lay that vellum panel over the top, it's just going to soften it beautifully and make it just this lovely soft, gentle background. It's not overpowering at all. You can see how nicely that vellum kind of just softens that background. I just love that effect. So here you can see it close up. There's just the hint of color behind that, behind the pattern, and the coordinating stencils make it easy to put that color in exactly the right spots. So now I have heat embossed the It's a New Day stamp set onto a panel of Fabriano Artistico hot press watercolor paper. Now the difference between hot press and cold press is extremely smooth. Cold press has some texture to it. When I am working with pan watercolors, I like to work with cold press. I find that the texture on cold press works beautifully with pan watercolors because there's a little bit of opacity to the pan watercolors usually. But when I am working with a completely translucent watercolor medium like the Caran markers, I like to use hot press watercolor paper. Hot press watercolor paper, the color, it moves differently. It's one of those things that you kind of have to try it yourself to see the effect. But I have found that with the card markers, I've had a couple conversations recently about maybe card markers a little bit difficult to work with. You have to find the right paper for them. I struggled with them when I first got them because I couldn't find a paper that worked really well with them. I also was putting the marker directly to the paper, which you can see that I have scribbled the card markers off to the side on my ceramic palette, and I am picking that color up with my damp paintbrush and adding it to my panel of watercolor paper. This allows me to control the level of intensity of the color, first of all, and it also allows me to add a little bit more water. The card markers seem to work a little bit better when you have a little bit more moisture on the actual paper. So I lay some of that color down, and sometimes if it doesn't want to move, I'll clean my brush and get a little bit of clean water and kind of drop it onto that area that I've just laid down the color on that's kind of being stubborn. Let that sit there for a second or two, and then try to work the color with my clean paintbrush. And allowing that clean water to kind of sit on there, it helps the color to move a little bit better. So those are just some tips that I have picked up, and I've had these card markers for a few years now, and I really, really enjoy using them. They're really fun for use, just some quick watercoloring. And if I don't want to have, 1,000 colors at my disposal, like I have with some of my watercolor pan sets that come from tubes, these are a great option for just some kind of more limited palette coloring. So you can see that with this image, I've heat embossed it in white, and I should have thought that wouldn't pick up as very well on camera, but I was trying to be cohesive between the white heat embossed vellum panel and the white embossed floral panel for the It's a New Day stamp set. But you can see that I'm just laying down. First, I have a very pale peach color. I think it's called like Skin or something like that. It's not a very attractive name, but it's a very pale peach color. I lay that down first and kind of pull that color out a little bit with my clean damp paintbrush, and then I lay a little bit more of that coral directly on the top. And when you do wet on wet watercoloring, it's allowing that color to bloom. The wet watercolor will seek out the moist watercolor paper. And I've done a few videos with this technique where you just drop the color onto a wet section of watercolor, and this color spreads, and it creates this beautiful watercolor effect, and the colors blend and meld so beautifully together. So you can see that there are some areas where I'm kind of intensifying some of the shadows, but you can see how nicely those colors, the peach and coral colors, how they work together with that blended background that we've created, that we softened with the vellum. So here I've got some very bright green card marker that I'm going to use to add color to the foliage. We're just doing very simple watercoloring. This is not anything too elaborate here. And what's nice about the white embossing, I find that white embossed watercolored images, they retain that light ethereal feel that we're after from the light background. When you use black or a darker metallic color, it can make those images feel a little bit heavy. And this white the white heat embossed almost creates kind of a no-line effect, no-line watercoloring effect, without having to go through the extra work of making sure that all of your wet sections stay separate. You still have the ease of use with the little wells and barriers that the embossed areas create. So I'm just kind of dropping a little bit more color into those foliage pieces and intensifying the color a little bit. But you can see that once we pair the watercolored image with the softened vellum background, it works beautifully together. And I have several, I like to keep my hot foiled sentiments all together in a little pouch. I keep different color families together, and that way I can just pull out a sentiment very quickly and not have to dig out my hot foil machine. I have all of my sentiments and everything together. So what I am going to do now, I have taken some washi tape and taped my vellum panel down. Now, the only thing with vellum is you have to be a little bit sneaky with your adhesive. Because it is translucent, you will be able to see that adhesive through the vellum panel. So I have taped that down with some washi tape exactly over the top of my blended background, and I have arranged my flower die cuts and my sentiment where I want them on that panel. I'm using a piece of press and seal saran wrap. I'm picking up those die cuts and I'm going to add foam adhesive to the back of that little cluster of die cuts. And this is going to allow me to keep those die cuts in exactly the right placement. And then when I adhere them to my vellum panel, I will be able to add adhesive to the back of that vellum panel and hide it. So here I've just removed all of the release paper, and now it's all together in a nice little cluster on my press and seal piece, and then I can just pull that press and seal off and it's perfectly adhered to my card front. So now I'm going to flip that vellum panel over and add adhesive to the back of those solid die cuts and kind of hide it back there. And that way our vellum panel gets adhered to the blended panel and without messing it up by adding big blobs of adhesive on the transparent areas. So I'm just going to adhere that exactly over the blended area. And you can also use, there is also a product called Vellum adhesive, but if you don't have that, this is a great way to still be able to adhere that vellum piece to your card front. So now I'm just adding a few gems, and I will link all of these products below. I'm adding a few lovely pink gems to kind of coordinate. They're kind of a pinky peach coral color, and they just coordinate beautifully with the corally colors in the card. So I hope you enjoyed that card. I hope you will try. If you have not worked with vellum, I hope you will give vellum a try, because I find it to be an invaluable tool to have at my craft desk. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, maybe give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to see more content from us in the future. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.